Professor Inwagen, let me ask my question. Uh, what do you think uh, you of your argument of the ontology of consciousness? What do you think are the consequences of your argument in AI research, and how would you implement your views on consciousness and not having qualia and I don't and how would you put that in the AI sense?
I'm not sure it has any consequences um, for AI. It might have some consequences in the exact language you use to describe the result. Probably my philosophy of material objects is put forward in material beings has significant implications for AI. Um, it's just that the philosophy of the ontology of consciousness that I presented today is so very abstract that it's probably consistent with almost anything done in science. Um, what it's inconsistent with is, I think, various things said by philosophers of mind, philosophers of perception, epistemologists, and so on. I hope I'm not seeming to evade the question there, but um, a lot would depend on. Well, suppose you think you're having a conversation with an AI system. What exactly is it that you think you're having the conversation with, in the broadest sense of what is it? Are you talking? Are you talking with the hardware that implements the AI? Um, are you somehow talking with the AI with with the software that embodies that AI? I would say um, that it better be that you're talking with one of the computers that embodies it. Except, of course, there may not be any particular computer that embodies it. It might be flashing back and forth. The causes of what you're hearing might be flashing back and forth between about 500 workstations all over the world. So it would be difficult to answer questions like that. But maybe in order to talk a little more directly to that question, I'd want to have the question asked in a little more detail. Um, if more detail is possible.
um I mean, in a sense of um uh, I don't want to go into a concept like singularity, just a matter of the possibility of AI having consciousness or mental states. Let's put it at that.
Well, and we would want to ask, what is it that is conscious? When you say AI being conscious, what are you using AI to refer to? Is it again hardware, software, some combination of them? Um, if you
Um,
want to say,
it doesn't matter. Just like AI in general, I had nothing specific in mind.
yeah,
But like,
well,
yeah, yeah.
I would give different answers to that question, though, depending on which of these things we're talking about, because we are talking about ontology
Mm,
here. So we need to get the ontology of, if we're going to talk about AI in ontological terms, we have to talk about it in ontological terms. We have to, even if you don't know the answer to the question, we'd have to separate the question and say, if you're talking um, about hardware, this is the answer to your question.
hmm
If you're talking about um, software, that's the answer to your question.
hmm Okay.
So,
Uh,
I mean, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. We'll go to the next questions because I don't want to disturb the people that have questions. Parsa has asked that does God have mental states and consciousness?
If we do, then I suppose God must, in some sense, have them. Now, of course, there are many old questions here. That is, so for example, I believe that the earth is round. Since God is omniscient, he presumably believes that the earth is round. But are we saying the same, are we predicating the same thing of me and God? Or is there only, as many European scholastics said, only some analogical relation between the two? So a lot will depend on your theology here. The Hebrew Bible said that God created man in his own image, but there's much dispute about what that means. Does it mean, for example, that I have beliefs, that God has beliefs in the same sense that you and I have beliefs, or is just the fact that you have beliefs a kind of echo of something in God that isn't really literally the same thing? There are many, many theological issues there that are not really philosophical issues at all, because most of what we know about God, we know through revelation. That is, we know these things about God because God has told them to us. But then people hear God's voice in different ways, so they disagree about what God has told us about himself. Do you see what I'm saying? That is, we would need to agree about theology before we could even discuss that philosophical question.
Okay. Our next question. He has asked that. Thank you, Professor. Are you designated to irreductionist physicalism? Is that true? And what point is it different from Chalmers naturalism?
Well, first of all, when I'm a physicalist, I'm just a physicalist about our little part of the created world. Of course, I believe in God and angels and so on, and they're certainly not physical. I just saying that I believe that we are physical. Now, as to Chalmers, you remember Chalmers is a panpsychist. I have no sympathy with panpsychism, although I suppose panpsychism would be consistent with everything I said today. But I mean, Chalmers is a naturalist in that he believes the natural world is all that there is, whereas I believe that the natural world is very far from being all. Excuse me. There was a lovely picture in a long discourse written by a 14th century Christian mystic, in which she has a vision called the vision of the hazelnut, in which she sees God holding a little thing in his hand, and that little thing, it was round as any nut, she said, and it was so small that she felt so sorry for it. She couldn't see that this thing was so small. How could it even continue to exist? And then it was told to her that the name for that little thing in God's hand was all that is made. And of course, that's what I think all that is made is practically nothing compared with the maker. That's hardly something Chalmers would agree to.
Mm-hmm. Our next question is, you have written in the book on the materialistic ontology of humans, according to identity theory. How is it? I can see only one answer to this question that has any hope of making sense in metaphysical meaning. Mental changes in a material substance in a set of things, one and all, are the same as physical changes in that substance. That mental variations in a substance are a subset of the physical class. What changes are there in that material except mental and physical changes? I have thought a lot about this view from your presentation today. It seems that there is still complexity to answer this question, isn't it?
Yes, well, that's a very good question, and I'm afraid you're going to find the answer to it a little disappointing. You ask about the relation between mental changes and physical changes in physical substances, and I would have to ask you what a change is. A change, I would seem, is just an event, and I have denied the existence of events. This is why I said I can't say, just as I can't say that mental events really are a subclass of physical events, I can't say that mental changes are a subclass of physical changes because those are both the empty class. There just are no changes of either sort. There is, of course, you can say in a mental state. Um, that's the way to work identity into that. I'm willing to say if a if something is in a certain mental state at a certain time, that supervenes on its physical state at that time. I mean, I'm talking about if it's a material thinker in the first place, its mental properties will supervene on its physical properties. I'm willing to say that much, but that's not an identity thesis.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Another question that uh, can we can we reach to realistic proposition from unrealistic propositions? I don't.
So,
I don't. Yeah, he's someone has written in the chat box this and ZKK you haven't written. آقای خانم ZKK اگر سوالتون مثلا میخواین باز کنید یا مثلا میکروفون رو بهتون بدیم. So did you understand his or her question?
no, I don't understand what a realistic or an unrealistic proposition is.
Yeah. So if he adds anything, I'll tell you. Okay.
Or just say a bit more about what those.
Yeah, yeah. It was vague for me too. So, um, um, Professor, maybe another question I would like to ask is that you still, in your paper, you refer to that you still believe that the hard problem of conscience is a real problem. But in a way, I just it didn't fit into me in your argument that in all of what you said, you still believe that the hard problem of conscience is a real problem. Maybe if you can open up and maybe elaborate it for us, it would be really helpful.
All right. Mental problem, and we have physical substances. How is it possible for physical substances to have mental properties? I mean, there's no ontological um, difficulty there. There's no logical or ontological difficulty. But how mental properties, though, why should a certain way of putting substances together into larger substances, why should a physical substance, however complex, have mental properties? And furthermore, why these mental properties? So I look at a green apple and hold it before in the hand. I have a certain property sensing greenly, as Chisholm would call it. Why am I having that property and not sensing redly when I look at the apple? I mean, we know all about, we know a lot about the physics and physiology of perception, but none of it explains why we have that property rather than some other color sensing property. This is just the hard problem of consciousness in slightly different words, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I understood. Yeah. Okay. Um, let's see if we have any more questions. I see Joshua Nobe has came too. Greetings to Josh. Okay. Looks like we don't have any more questions. Well, Peter, we love to have you around. We'll be with Joshua Nobe and Ned Block to end our international conference on the philosophy of consciousness. But I know you have it's daytime and you have lots of stuff to do. But if you can, we would love to have you around. And thank you again for accepting our invitation. And we hope to see you in person. And we hope that there'll be more relations from Iran with you and from our philosophical institutions.
And thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you for the excellent questions. Thank you for your time. I'm very grateful.